Episode of the Diamond Discussion Podcast. Alongside my co-hosts, we got Joe Stumpo and Ben Angiano. We are going to give you our predictions and breakdowns of each league and who's going to come out on top with the division winners and some wildcard spots. So this is the first episode, the first half, and we are doing the American League. We are going to save the East for last because Joe's a Yankee fan, so we'll save that and we'll build up some hype. Could be arguably maybe the better division in baseball, but well, at least in the American League, and we'll discuss it. But guys, if we can open up, you guys want to start out in the AL Central?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right, so in the AL Central, I have the Detroit Tigers finishing first, winning that division. I have the Royals, Guardians, White Sox, and Twins rounding it out. I do think that the Chicago White Sox had a good enough offseason to not finish in the basement this year in the AL Central, so that's why I'm giving them, I guess, their flowers, if you would, where they don't finish in the cellar this year. I do think the Royals are going to edge the Guardians out. I do think that they just have the better pitching right now, and I think if they can get some offensive support, that they could finish second. And I think with the, obviously with the Tigers rotation, that's going to really propel them to the tops of this division. You got Framber, you got Skubal, you have Justin Verlander heading back there, and Casey Mize is no slouch either when he's healthy. So I think that the Detroit Tigers could really finally right the ship, especially what happened last year with a 15-game lead, blowing that lead to the Guardians the last weekend of the season and blowing the division. So I see the Detroit Tigers winning this division this year and riding the ship.
Yeah, I like that. I have in fifth place, I have the Chicago White Sox. In fourth place, I have the Cleveland Guardians. In third place, I have the Minnesota Twins. In second, I have the Royals. And in first, I have the Tigers. I do think the Tigers right now probably have the best rotation in the American League Central. Adding Verlander, obviously Framber Valdez, that's a major two acquisitions to that starting rotation. Obviously, Kenley Jensen in that bullpen as well, I think is a very big plus. I think they needed somebody to back Will Vest, so that's going to be a major plus in that bullpen. I am very high on the Royals this year. I do think that they're like a bounce back team in my opinion. I think the Twins are one team that if they have a healthy rotation, it could still compete in this division with Pablo Lopez coming back fully healthy, Joe Ryan, Taj Bradley, Bailey Ober as well. So I think the Twins are actually going to surprise a few people, at least for the start, until they start selling off pieces. So that maybe afterwards they start a little bit of a decline. But I'm not a big fan of Cleveland's offseason. I think they didn't really help J-Ram in what he needs. That rotation, I get their pitching is always good in Cleveland, but I'm just not a big fan of that lineup. I really think other than J-Ram, there's a lot of big-time holes in that lineup. So I think Cleveland's going to take a step back. And even though I have the Chicago White Sox in fifth place, I do think that they're going to have a season where, all right, you start seeing the improvements. They have the number one overall draft pick as well. So it's starting to come together. Even though they are in last place, I don't think they're going to be one of the bad last place teams, if that makes sense.
That's respectable.
I think that's fair. So the problem with, I guess, going last in these predictions is what else could I say that these two haven't? But in reality, I do have the Tigers, winning this division. Like both these gentlemen alluded to, the rotation is probably maybe top three in the American League and probably being the third best in the American League. The additions of Framber and bringing back Verlander, if this is his last season, way to go out and finish out in Detroit. But to have Verlander with his experience, with his World Series and playoff experience and everything that he's done as your possible number four, I think is obviously a very good rotation, regardless of his age. He's a gamer. He's going to do what he's got to do. The Royals, I have them in second. I mean, they've improved, but they haven't spent a lot. I mean, that seems to be the thing with the Royals. That's what they do. I have them coming out in second. I think they're going to be more competitive than maybe they were last year. I think you're going to get a bit of a bounce back from Bobby Witt and the rest of that lineup and some of the young players that they have. So overall, I do like the Royals team. I think they need a little more, depending on what they do at the deadline. Overall, then I'm going to have the Guardians coming in third. I don't like what they did. I don't like their offseason at all. I don't think they've complimented their team at all. I think they've spent next to nothing. I think them and the Royals have spent the least out of any of these teams. To think that the Chicago White Sox have outspent two teams probably combined is a wild thing to say overall. And I actually have the White Sox in fourth, and rounding out, I got the Twins in fifth. And the reason why I have the Twins in dead last in that division, not the White Sox, is simply because I think they're going to end up being sellers at the deadline. I think any piece that they have worth of value will be gone. And realistically, that lineup outside of Buxton, what do they really have? In their rotation, I know they have Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, but I fully expect those guys to be moved at the deadline and even before maybe. And after that happens, I think there's really not going to be a ton of competitive major league talent left on that roster. And that's where I could see maybe the White Sox overtake them and jump them in a sense.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that analysis. I think my breakdown of the Twins is if they start off the season stronger than expected, more so, and they start off on a little bit of a roll with that rotation healthy now, and they do have Buxton, they have Luke Keeschel, Brooks Lee, Mike's favorite catcher in the league, Ryan Jeffers. We have some good pieces.
I hate you as a person.
So we have some good pieces for the Twins. And obviously Walker Jenkins, I think he finally will make his debut for the Twins this year. Hopefully, I have a lot of his baseball cards, so it's about time he gets in the major leagues. So I am kind of high on the Twins, not as high as other people. I'll be honest. They brought in Josh Bell, but I mean, obviously this is the later half of his career. I just feel like the Twins, if they could get on a roll to start off the year, pick up some wins and everything like that. I mean, AL Central is not the most toughest division in baseball. I think they could put themselves in a position where, all right, maybe they're not full sellers. Maybe they sell what? If they do find a perfect trade package for a guy like Lopez or Ryan, they'll do it. Yeah, that'll be fine. But I think the Twins could start off a little bit more on fuego. And maybe if they fizzle out, that's where I see them obviously shipping off the pieces. Finally, maybe even Buxton. Who knows?
Well, Buxton he's got to waive his no trade, and he seems to be reluctant. Joe, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you there. I had to get that out. But Buxton, I agree. He's reluctant to waive his no trade, and he has to.
Yeah, there's not going to be much success in Minnesota to begin with, and I think Mike is right when he alludes to the fact that by the deadline, I think a lot of pieces are going to get dealt. I think they're going to be 15 games out, maybe even 20, by the All-Star break, and I think they're just going to say, screw it. Let's just get rid of everybody that's valuable, like Mike said, and let's just rebuild. I think they've kind of put the rebuild off a little bit, and not for nothing. I think Joe Ryan is going to be on a different team at the deadline. That's just how I feel. There's no reason to keep a guy like him around if you're not going to have winning baseball. There's no reason to waste this guy. So I think he's just going to wind up getting traded. I think they do sit down with Buxton as well and maybe try to figure out if he's willing to waive his no trade clause and if there's a team he'd like to go to, just because maybe they could work something out that way. But I don't think there's going to be much success for Minnesota to begin with. So if we guys want to move on to the AL West, shifting into the AL West, or do we have any comments left?
Real quick, I did want to talk about the Royals for a quick second because I talked highly about them in previous video we did about the award predictions. Like I said, about the fences moving up, I think that'd be a major plus for them offensively. Bringing in a piece like Isaac Collins from Milwaukee at left field, I think is something that they needed, a little bit of versatility in that outfield. The one thing I do wonder about Kansas City, will they finally get production from guys like Jonathan India? Will they finally get production from guys like even more production from Vinny Pasquantino? What will Jack Caglione's sophomore year look like? Those are my biggest question marks. Obviously, Cole Reagans being fully healthy this season is a major plus for them because the fact that he went out of the books and he was on the shelf for maybe 2-3 months last year, that was a big no-go for them. So if he could stay healthy along with Waka, Lugo, obviously Chris Bubic as well, I just wonder how that's going to end up going for Kansas City. I do like the addition to their bullpen with Matt Strahm. I think that was a great addition as well. So that's one thing I'll look about Kansas City's pitching because I do feel like it could compete with Detroit's pitching. It's just, will it stay healthy? That's my only concern, really.
My concern is more their offense. If we want to get into that, I think they got to score runs. If they're not scoring runs, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. That's just my opinion. They have a lot of guys in that rotation that could actually really keep a game, up for grabs. And if they're not scoring, they're going to probably lose a lot of those games. So that's just how I see how that offense fits this year.
I guess my final piece on it with this division is Detroit. The only thing, the weakness I see with them is their lineup. It's been solid, but they should have added to it. I know, obviously, they brought back Glaber. Their lineup is relatively the same. I could see that being a focal point for them maybe at the deadline to, put them over the top, and that would be to go after a piece or two to solidify that lineup, because that's the weakness, at least at this point. I think Ben had mentioned, their bullpen has gotten a little stronger. Their rotation, like all three of us had mentioned, has gotten stronger. But to me, the lineup is maybe their Achilles heel, and I think they're going to have to upgrade at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. Cleveland, I know they won the division last year, and don't get it twisted, even though I had them placing fourth, I know that how Stephen Vogt has operated while he's been the manager there, they could easily win 84 to 85 games. I mean, it just runs in their DNA over there. So I do like their pitching, and obviously their bullpen's great with Kate Smith in the back of it. I'm not a big fan of that lineup, so that's why I wasn't really trying to crap on it like that. But I'll tell you that I'm just not a big fan of Cleveland this year at all.
Yeah,
I wasn't last year, and look what they did.
Yeah, me neither.
I had them. I think
it was more Detroit blowing that division than it was Cleveland. I know Cleveland went on like a crazy run. They were like 16-1. At one point, I do get it. They played phenomenal baseball, but Detroit had so much room in order to win that division, and they just let all the wiggle room completely get squashed because of bad play on their end. If they win 4 or 5 more games at the end of the year, they win that division by 5 games, and they don't let Cleveland win this division. So I think it's more bad play on Detroit's part than it was on Cleveland's part. And yes, I know they went on a historic run. Like I said, they won like 18 of 19. Whatever it was, to get into the playoffs and win the division. But to me, it was more crappy baseball on Detroit's part than anything.
I completely agree. And they had a couple of injuries. They had a couple of things that set them back. But yeah, I completely agree with that. Guys, before we move on to the next division, where obviously you heard we're going to go AL West, I'm going to keep doing my normal spiel. I'm going to tell you guys, light up our comment section. Let us know what you agree with, what you disagree with. Give us your predictions if you want to put everything out there. If there's a point that maybe we missed or didn't hit on, or something that you wanted to hear and further, by all means, light up the comment section, like and share, subscribe, send this out to everybody you know, friends, enemies, frenemies, whoever you want to send it to. That's all fine and good. But if we're going to move on to the AL West, I feel like we all this division to me has the potential for all three of us to be different. I feel like I kind of understand where you guys are going to go, but one of you take it away. Let's hear what we got. Who is your division champs in the AL West?
So I'm gonna go bottom to top. I have the Angels finishing in 5th, A's in 4th, the Rangers in 3rd, Houston in 2nd, and the Mariners winning the AL West for the 2nd year in a row. I think they just have enough pitching, and they brought back most of their offensive firepower. Obviously, they lost Polanco, and they lost Suarez as well. But I do think they have enough offense to win this division. And I think Houston is not quite there yet when it comes to retaking the AL West. So that's why I put them in 2nd. And I think Texas is just going to have to stay healthy. I'm not too sure, with their rotation. I think that's their strong point. But that lineup right now is just kind of iffy to me. And if they start, experiencing injuries as well, it's going to get really ugly there. They could drop down quickly. And as for the A's and the Angels, I think the A's are just not quite there yet when it comes to, fighting for, any type of division crown. They have some ways to go. And obviously the Angels, just to me, they're just going to be in the cellar for a long time. I just don't see any type of improvement out of this ball club right now, to be honest with you. So I do see, obviously I think the A's are going to be a really good 4th place team, kind of just like the White Sox, to the point where maybe they win 78, 79 games. I do think they could if they stay healthy and these young guys come around. But I do see the Mariners obviously taking this division for 2nd year in a row.
Fair enough. I have the Angels finishing in 5th. 4th place, I have the Athletics. 3rd place, I have the Rangers. In 2nd, I have the Astros. And 1st, I have the Mariners. I do believe that the Mariners had a pretty good offseason for the most part. They added Ferreira to their bullpen to back Munoz and Gabe Speyer as well. And they also added Brendan Donovan via trade. They also brought in, I believe they re-signed Naylor. That's what I'm trying to think about. They re-signed Naylor, which was obviously well needed. Suarez isn't coming back, but I don't think they really mind that. I think the Mariners did enough, in my opinion, to win this division. I am very interested to see, however, I will say this about the Astros, how they will be bouncing back after they had a very injury-ridden season, a big-time one. It was them and the Mets, 1A, 1B, when it comes to injury-riddled seasons last year in the MLB. So I think they're going to bounce back, have a pretty good year. Texas, even though their rotation for the most part is pretty strong, not a big fan of their bullpen at the moment. They have Chris Martin trying to go and save games for them at the moment. I don't think that's decent. Their lineup is good, but it's a matter of health with Seager, Langford as well. I mean, that Jock Peterson signing is looking horrendous because he had a crappy year one. We'll see what he does in year two. Jake Berger was underwhelming as well. So, not a big fan of the Rangers this year. The Athletics offense is really good, but their pitching is really bad. Will Severino be as bad as he was last year? Most likely not. But still, who are you trusting in that Athletics bullpen? Not many. And Angels, I think they're the Angels. They have some good young talent. I will say that they have Neto. Joe Adell had a very good year finally. Nolan Schanuel, obviously Trout, Ohapi, Christian Moore even. They have great pieces there. Yohan Moncada's back, but their rotation and their bullpen, I don't know. It's not selling it. So, yeah, I have the Mariners, though, taking the AL West in 2026.
So it seems like we're all pretty much in agreement and relatively similar. I got the Angels rounding out the bottom. I do. Followed by the Athletics, the Rangers, the Astros, and the Mariners. I think the Mariners, they were very close, obviously, to making a World Series push. They were right there. They played Toronto very well. I like what they did with this team. They finally added offense to an elite pitching staff. Arguably could be the best pitching staff in baseball, or even so in the American League. So I do like Seattle. I like their chances. I also think they might go potentially one and the same, come around the trade deadline, add another bat if they need, or add, whatever they need to. I think they have one of the best closers in baseball too, in Andres Munoz. I like what they did with their bullpen. Overall, the Astros, I'm a little in between with them because healthy last season, they could have potentially won that division. They only lost it by 3 games. So I think they easily could have been within striking distance if they didn't have the injuries they did. Now, you don't know what their rotation, how it's going to look, obviously, with Imai, how he's going to translate to Major League Baseball. It could be he could struggle at first or he could be lights out. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to go with I think he's going to struggle a little bit just to get acclimated. Obviously, they're losing. They lost Framber. I think that was a big hit for them. A guy that's been there for a while who's comfortable in their system, with all that. Their lineup, healthy, they're going to compete. I don't think this is a blowout. I don't think the Mariners run away with this division because – the 2 and 3 who I have, obviously, with the Rangers, there's a lot of strengths with both teams, even though there are some weaknesses. Moving on to Texas a little bit, their lineup, I think it needs a little more. Their starting rotation, their 1 through 3 is pretty solid, obviously, with the addition of Mackenzie Gore to be their third. They have a potential with Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker being their 1 through 5. Obviously, their rotation is solid. Their bullpen, like Ben said, their bullpen is Chris Martin, what is he, 38, 39 years old? He's going to be their closer. Do you really trust that down the stretch? I know there's been plenty of relievers that have, they've done this. They've gone into almost their early 40s, late 30s, and have handled business. But is that really something you put stock into? I'm going to see them as buyers at the deadline. I think they're going to go massive bullpen help to try to bolster if they're obviously within a few games of the division or even competing for a wild card. And then the outside of that, the Angels are, not to skip over the Athletics, but the Angels, I think they're just going to be at the bottom. They're going to be at the bottom. I made a bold take. If you guys have watched that video of where I think Mike Trout's going to be, and I don't think it's going to be with the Angels. I think they're going to do what they normally do. I think Trout is going to bounce back from the season he had last year. I think his average is going to come up. I think he's still going to hit his home runs. He's still going to drive in his runs as long as he stays healthy. So I think they're going to move on from him. They have to almost at this point. If there's a window and Trout plays up to a level that we know he's capable of, it only makes sense to move him. Yes, they're going to have to eat some money, but overall, they have to get younger because they have a ton of young talent, like Ben had mentioned. All those guys that they have to continue to go down that path because they're just staying stagnant and not doing anything. So they have to do that. The Athletics, solid young core with their lineup, solid young core. To also piggyback off of Ben, I think Severino is going to bounce back. I don't think what he did last year was who he is. Obviously, we saw what he was capable of with the Mets. We've seen what he was capable of with the Yankees. I don't think last year is who he is and what he's now become. I think he's going to bounce back strong, but that rotation does need some help. The bullpen needs some help. So that's why I have who I have where I do. But overall, like I said, I think the strongest team in that division, and it could be a hit or miss, but I do like Seattle. I think they're going to repeat.
I don't mind that at all. I think another thing about Seattle as well that I really like is they had a little bit of injuries as well last year. Kirby was out. Gilbert was out. who had a little bit of an issue at the end of the year. If that rotation is fully healthy, I mean, Castillo was their most healthy pitcher last year. So if their top 3 guys are fully healthy, Bryce Miller was injured too for a big amount of the year. If they have a big amount of that rotation fully healthy, I think they take this division, not with ease, but I do think that they go back-to-back as AL West division winners.
Yeah, I see Seattle taking this. I just think that their offense, like I said, even though they had some losses on the offense, obviously with Suarez and Polanco, they were able to re-sign Naylor. They were able to get Donovan via trade. So I think their additions really, negated their subtractions, and they really addressed the things that they lost, and they were able to maybe even get it actually better with the deals that they've made, actually just taking on Naylor and getting Donovan. So, like Ben said and Mike said, if their pitching can stay healthy, they're going to be a really tough out in that AL West. So that's why we all see them winning this division again in 2026.
Any final thoughts before we move on?
Just one thing about one of the teams, the Rangers. I know they expected to get Sebastian Walcott. Well, guess what? He is having UCL surgery, so they're not going to have him bringing up another one of their young prospects that goes down. And they expected this guy to maybe not break camp, but be around maybe May, June-ish. And guess what? Now he has to have a UCL for his throwing arm. Horrible news for the Rangers.
That's a big blow. That's a blow for the organization there.
Yeah, that's for sure. I guess the last thing I could say is one thing I want to see. I want to see a healthy breakout. Not breakout because we know what he is, but I want to see a healthy take the next step type of season from Wyatt Langford. I think we're all high on him. His talent is there. He's got to stay on the field. Obviously you don't want to miss any time, but I want to see him take that next step and become, transcend maybe into that superstar that I think we all think he could be. But other than that, I think that's my final take on this division. Guys, everybody listening, as you know, as I do this constantly, how much we appreciate you guys listening and motivating us to keep going. So we want to hear your thoughts on the AL West. Obviously, drop your predictions, drop your opinions. Think anything that you can come up with that maybe we didn't, or if you have the division going a different way than we did. That's all fine and good. Obviously, everybody's opinions are welcome, so we want to see them. So we obviously light up our comment section. And, maybe if you had this conversation at, your lunch break on work and, you see things how we do and your friends maybe don't. Well, guess what? Send this to them and maybe we can help, maybe bridge the gap and convince them to, see things that maybe they're not seeing, because always those work arguments are always the best when it comes to sports because everybody's an expert. Everybody knows everything. So, see if maybe you agree with a couple of guys that got a microphone and a camera and, see how that plays out. But as always, we do appreciate it. Moving on to the AL East. Joe's obviously favorite division, so I'm sure he's excited for this prediction. I think this has a potential to go very poorly because I think we're going to see some things a little differently. But by all means, Ben, you know what? Let's save Joe. Why don't you take this away? Where do you sit with the AL East?
Perfect. I have in 5th place the Tampa Bay Rays. 4th place, the Baltimore Orioles. 3rd place, the New York Yankees. 2nd place, the Boston Red Sox. And 1st, the Toronto Blue Jays. So I do have the Toronto Blue Jays topping the AL East with the Red Sox not far behind them. I think the Red Sox are going to be a very competitive team this year. They made a lot of good additions to their rotation and a sneaky addition to their bullpen. I think, obviously, now a fully healthy season of Brian Bayo. I think that's going to be better. He had a little bit of an injury concern last year, was a little banged up. Garrett Crochet, we know what he brings to the table. He's an absolute monster. Adding Steven Matz for that bullpen is going to be a good 6th, 7th inning guy as well. I know we joked about it a little bit in the offseason when the offseason was dry, but obviously it's a thing to look at. I think the Blue Jays, though, the reason I have the Blue Jays winning this division is because I think they're most well-rounded team in the American League in general. I think with the additions they made with Cease, Tyler Rogers, Ponce as well, Akamoto, I think they're just a well-rounded machine. You saw what they did without Bichette in the playoffs last year. Adding a guy like Akamoto, I think, could be huge, especially if he translates to the major league level. So I'm black with the Blue Jays to win this division.
Bro, you want to take this? You want to take it away?
Yeah, sorry, I was still muted.
That's all right.
So you know what? I actually agree with Ben completely. I think we have it exactly the same. I have the Rays finishing last. I don't think they did enough. I also think they had too many subtractions to their team. I have the Orioles just ahead of them, and not because the Orioles made a lot of big moves to their lineup. We got to see how that translates. I don't think they did enough with the pitching staff. I feel like this is now year 2 in a row where I don't want to say they ignored it because obviously they added some of the additions with Shane Baz obviously being the headline to that, but I think they needed more. I think they needed a true number one. I don't think they have that, and I mean their lineup is shaky. Their lineup is shaky for the fact that look at what they did last year between the injuries and guys underperforming. We don't really know who some of these players are fully yet, and even guys we thought we knew their identity, maybe taking a step back. Injuries played a lot of part of that, and their bullpen obviously taking a hit with the big mountain man. He's going to be out for the year, unfortunately. So I just overall I don't think they're built and strong enough to compete in this division because I think the top 3 teams, realistically, I think it could potentially go either way because each team has obviously a lot of strengths to it. After that, I have the Yankees in third for the sheer fact of I don't think they did enough at all. You were not the best team in the American League. You were not the best team in Major League Baseball, and you're deciding to run it back. I think that is, I don't want to say a joke, but in reality, if you're not the best team, running it back, I don't think is an option when you're watching every team in your division, other than maybe the Rays, getting better. And doesn't necessarily mean it's better than you, but the fact that you're going to miss still a piece of coal for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks. Rodon is around in the same atmosphere. Schlittler's already coming out with potential back issues. You don't know what Luis Hill might be. He obviously had the strong rookie campaign last year, dealing with the injury, coming back, didn't look as strong. And, what is this lineup going to do? It's just another year older for everybody. And I just don't think running it back was the move to make, in my opinion. Again, based on the fact, especially in your division alone, the teams that are going to be competing for that top spot have gotten better. Moving on now to second, I have the Red Sox. I think they have gotten better overall. I know with the loss of Bregman is going to be big for them. I think their young talent is going to take that next step. Obviously, we love Roman Anthony. The kid is a beast, a monster. He was a big missing factor for them in that playoff run that maybe could have changed the outcome of their series with the Yankees. But I think Roman Anthony is going to take that next step and show why he was arguably the number 1 prospect in baseball last season. I like what they did with their pitching staff. Their bullpen, they added a couple of pieces. I mean, nothing big and sexy and crazy, but they re-signed Chapman, who now at 37, 36, I forget how old he is, has now decided to come out and say, I have just learned how to locate my fastball. Or not learned, but now I'm locating my fastball. I'm sorry, what? You've been one of the most dominant closers in baseball and you haven't been locating your fastball? Wild to me. So if what he was last year is who he's going to finish out his career as, that's a very dangerous thing. I do like I said, I do like their lineup. I like the young talent that they have. And then overall, the division winners for the second year in a row and the American League champions, I'm going to take the Toronto Blue Jays. I love what they did with their team. They added, even though they're looking a little meek with some of the injuries that have already come out. Bieber, to name one, but I like what they have. I love that young pitcher they got in Trey Savage. I think that kid is going to be a monster. So their rotation I think is going to be fine, even with the potential loss of Scherzer, even though he hasn't been signed yet. That could change potentially after this, video is out. So I don't know, but I don't think Scherzer is really going to make or break what that team is. But I like their team. I like what they've done. They've come together, and it seems since giving Vladdy the extension and doing necessarily the right thing, everything came together. And I know that they lost Bo, a guy that both of those guys had come up together, but I think they've done enough, even with the additions of Akamoto, to that lineup. And they have a very young, scrappy lineup, and then they have some boppers when they need it. I know Blake Snell basically was like, that lineup doesn't scare me. Well, that was a lineup that beat him twice in the World Series. So to come out and say asinine things like that was absolutely ridiculous. But overall, I have Toronto taking this division. I think they've earned that right.
Yeah, absolutely. Toronto was literally 2 outs from winning the World Series. I mean, and toppling the Dodgers. So obviously that they're going to be obviously right there again for 2026. I definitely agree with that. So for the AL East, I'm going to go bottom to top. I have the Rays finishing in 5th. I have the Orioles in 4th. I do have the Red Sox in third. I have the Yankees in second, and I have Toronto winning the division. I guess the only explanation I have to give is my 2 and 3 pick, because it's different from you guys. But I understand that the Yankees didn't add offensively in the offseason, but we have to understand something. They were able to keep everybody that they had from last year. And I understand that's kind of a disappointment, but maybe not, because they did have the best offense in baseball last year during the regular season. They were definitely the best offense in the American League as well. They led in every offensive category. They led in home runs, RBIs, batting average. They actually led in strikeouts. The fewest strikeouts, walks, OPS, on base percentage, whatever category that you could think of, they led. So I don't think it's going to be the offense that lets them down. I actually think it's going to be the bullpen. I know there's some injuries to the rotation. We have Cole coming back. It looks like mid-May. Rodon, obviously, he had the surgery in the offseason, and now Schlittler with a little bit of a back issue, but it actually hasn't affected him throwing. He still was able to throw, so that was a good sign. It could have just been maybe some stiffness there. I know they said back inflammation, but it could just be a stiffness thing. Hopefully, he does come out on top, but I do think the Yankees are going to have to address their bullpen at the deadline. And I know Brian Cashman is more of a deadline guy than he is in the offseason. For some reason, he's usually striking when the iron's hot during the deadline more than he is in the offseason. I don't know what it is the past couple of years, but he seems to be making some pretty good deals during the deadline, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Yankees are going to trade for some additional help in their pen, and maybe they do trade for a right-handed bat during the deadline as well. So yes, even though they do need some additions, I'm just not in love with Sonny Gray. He's not good against the AL East, and now he was pitching in a pretty decent division in the NL Central, but I just don't see how he fares in the AL East. He did it obviously as a Yankee. He blamed New York that he didn't pitch well, or whatever the case may be. But to me, he's just been a mid pitcher wherever he's gone, to be honest with you. And I don't see that as much of as a bolstering the rotation as everybody else sees it. But I do love Ranger Suarez. I think Ranger Suarez for them is going to be a huge piece, and obviously Garrett Crochet, who was my pick to win the AL Cy Young, to be honest with you, and obviously Toronto finishing at the top of that division. I think when it comes down to it, the Yankees are going to have a bit of a better offense than Boston, which is going to propel them into second place. But I do see Toronto, no matter what goes on, winning that division by at least 7 games.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think my critique about the Yankees is looking at what they kind of expect for guys like Grisham. Is he going to have the same season he did last year? Spoiler alert, most likely not. Judge obviously had an incredible year. I think there's no way around it. Judge is one of the best hitters in baseball, if not the best hitter. That's up for debate. As Judge gets older, I'm not saying it's going to be this season. I'm not going to say it's going to be next, but who knows? At some point, the level of production of Aaron Judge will slowly but surely start going down. He's getting up there in age. Bellinger is as well. I think Bellinger can still produce, bring great defense as well. They have a little bit of a void at shortstop. I mean, yes, Caballero's there right now at the moment while Volpe recovers, but Caballero's only going to give you so much offensively. Yes, he could steal bags if he gets on base. And then also Ryan McMahon is a liability at third, more so offensively than defensively. Austin Wells as well. I don't know what we're going to get out of him. I think there's more question marks, especially starting off the year. The Red Sox have a fully healthy rotation. The Yankees, not so much. That's kind of my thought process with that. I do favor the Red Sox bullpen a little bit more than the Yankees bullpen, and more so looking at the outfield as well with the Red Sox, Cedon, Jarren Duran, Roman Anthony. That's a pretty good outfield right there. So I do like Boston. I am actually very big on Boston again, 2 years in a row. So I hope they don't let me down, but it's not that I don't think the Yankees are going to be a competitive ball team. They obviously are. I mean, they won 90. How many wins? 94 wins last year, correct? 94 wins.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be a little bit decreasing that, but not by that much. I don't know. Running it back, like Mike said, I don't know if it was the best idea.
Yeah, very well. And you know what? To hit on Joe's point about Sonny Gray, I know he has his moments where he absolutely does look mid, and he has his other moments where he looks completely dominant. And the other side of that, with him blaming New York, I think it was more obviously the atmosphere for him. I don't think he really. I think he came out and said he really wasn't crazy about the move and coming into New York, but he wanted to get out of his situation, so that was understood. But I think it was more due to the fact of what the pitching staff tried to do with him, what the coaching staff tried to do with him and his pitches, and I think that's what made him uncomfortable, and it didn't work. for him. His style did not match and mesh with what that coaching staff wanted to do. So I think that was part of his problem because his numbers have been very well respectable since he's left. And I feel like he has a motivation. I think that's part of the reason why he was so bad against the American League East when he pitched there is because he was just so bad with the Yankees overall. So I think that's, some of those numbers I think are a little inflated overall. And I think he's got a little bit of a motivation. I think, Yankee fans are a little bad taste in the mouth for the Sonny Gray era in New York. So I feel like he almost has something he wants to prove. And, there's nothing more motivating than a fan base that doesn't like you or, doesn't maybe respect your talent or whatever the case is. Not saying that's the case, obviously, with fans like Joe, for example, but there are obviously fans. When a guy comes in and plays for your team and does not play well, most fans don't really like that player. So it is understood. Not trying to throw a shot or anything like that. So that could be an added motivation. I know if that was me, that would at least be my mindset overall. I do like that addition for the Red Sox to be the number 3 because, in St. Louis, he was kind of the number 1. Really wasn't working at that point. I think he's more, especially this part in his career, this age that he's at. I think he's going to be 36 this year. I think it's perfect, being a number 3 behind, Suarez and Crochet. Joe had mentioned that he's his pick for Cy Young. It's also my pick. I think Crochet is absolutely disgusting. Honestly, I really do. And I just, like I said, to go back onto that young team with Boston, I like them at least finishing in second. Toronto, I think, just has too much firepower overall. And again, I'm not trying to say that the Yankees are a bad team because they're not. They're not a bad team. But I think they needed to add more than just kind of balance and remain the same. And to another point that Joe made, I can see them going out at the deadline and making moves. They're going to have to. They're going to have to because the teams in front of you and even the teams that are competing for wild card spots, they're all going to make moves to make their team better. And the team that doesn't, to me, is the donkey of the league. But in reality, they're going to have to do something. What that is remains to be seen because there are still a few question marks. Do they address shortstop? Do they address the bullpen? Do they get it back into the rotation piece? There are a lot of options. So we'll see exactly how this offense does, go into this season coming off a very, very stellar, 2025 campaign. So we'll see how that does play out. But overall, I think, I'm sure some of our listeners who are Yankee fans, Joe, I think your buddy LJ is probably going to not be happy with me and Ben's takes, but it is what it is.
I have them in second place. I'm sure LJ probably thinks they're going to win the division.
He might. He might.
He may have a total different take than me, but I do see that their biggest issue to me is their bullpen right now. The bridging the gap to Bednar is the biggest issue to me right now.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say, we all have the Orioles finishing in 4th. They're not going to be a bad 4th place team at all. I don't see them being a bad 4th place team. What they have offensively right now with the additions of Taylor Ward, Pete Alonso, a healthy Adley Rutschman, hopefully finally, Samuel Basallo fully 1 year in the league. I mean, Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday, obviously he'll come back eventually, but even then, Colton Cowser, like Jordan Westberg, they have pieces there offensively that will keep them in games, even if their pitching does fail them. Their bullpen is where I'm really concerned because even though I don't think Ryan Helsley will be as bad as he was last year, that rotation is just, that bullpen, should I say, it's that bridge connecting to him. It's just not there, in my opinion. Yennier Cano, he had a very down year last year. They did have additions to that rotation, I will say that. Chris Bassett, they overpaid a little bit, but they had to because that rotation right now, trading for Shane Baz as well. I think they're going to be a very competitive team, even going into fighting for a wild card spot. I just think it's going to be a little bit hard, especially if one of those guys that are a little bit injury prone and Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish gets banged up. They're cooked. They're absolutely cooked, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of why I had them in 4th. I don't see them quite yet being in the top 3 in the division. I think they have some work to do when it comes to that rotation. And like you said, after the 6th inning, who's getting to Helsley? It's a tough bridge to have to get to Helsley. So I actually see Baltimore blowing a lot of leads in the 5th and the 6th inning, to be honest with you, because of that bullpen. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects their offense as well, because I feel like the offense will have so much pressure on them to have to score 5 or 6 runs by the 5th or 6th inning, so they could kind of be in a ball game or solidify a victory. So it's going to be tough. We'll see what happens. But if the Yankees want to be any type of contenders, they're probably going to have to stay healthy. Obviously, that's number one. I think Grisham, even if he's half the player he was last year, and he could hit maybe 20 to 25 home runs and not hit 230, maybe if he could hit, 240, 250, and obviously play some defense, I think they'll be okay with everybody else in that lineup. And like you said with Caballero, I'm not expecting 20 home runs from him. I'm expecting a 260 average, but a guy that once he gets on, if he gets a single, you could blink of an eye and he could be on third base. So that's one of his strengths as well. So the Yankees just have to stay healthy, and as long as Aaron Judge has oxygen in his lungs, I think they'll be fine.
That is fair. Guys out there, before we do this, any final thoughts? I think we kind of covered everything, no?
Yeah, I think that's it. One thing we didn't talk about them, but the Rays, even though we have them in last place, they could finish with 80 wins easily, knowing how they operate there. I just wanted to say that. I mean, Junior Caminero, that guy's a stud.
Absolutely. Listen, I think this is probably arguably the strongest division in all of baseball. You could have a potential last place team finishing at 500, and that's not really that out of a question. I don't know if that's really going to happen because that was sort of my prediction last year, and that did blow up. Obviously, the Orioles were a big part of that. The Rays kind of did what I expected, but I think they might take a step back. But arguably, like I said, this division could easily be the most competitive and the toughest to get through in baseball. So that is obviously a high note for anybody who does win this division. It's obviously good look heading into the playoffs. So overall, and even if they don't win the division, doesn't mean that maybe second and third place doesn't finish out in the wild card, which we will touch on in just a second. But guys, I have to bore you with my crap and my spiel and my stuff. You guys heard our AL East predictions. We want to hear from you. How crazy do you think we are? LJ, I'm curious to see what you think because I'm sure you're going to rip me apart. And I expect more from you in our next episode when we talk about the NL. Because I've seen your comments and I know what you have to say about some stuff. So LJ, by all means, I'm looking forward to it. And then for the rest of you guys, we want to hear from you as well. We see a lot of the same faces and a lot of the same names in our comment section, and we want to keep you guys going and keep you guys active and interactive with us. So in the same regard, join the conversation. Don't be shy. Half of you guys probably have names on your YouTube and your Spotify that, we can't even ID who you really are. And that's fine. Make a burner account and subscribe that way so you can have both, and it gives us another subscription. So again, send this out to everybody like, comment, and share if you can. But before we wrap, quick and easy, I think this should go hopefully quick and easy, not like the season. Who do we have rounding out the playoff picture? Who's coming out of the wild card in the American League?
So I have the Yankees in Boston, and I have the Royals making the AL wild card. I think the Yankees and the Boston, you can have them 1-2 respectively, however you want it. It's going to be a dogfight, but I do think the Royals sneak in on the back end and they get into the playoffs this year. So those are my three teams: Yankees, Boston, and Royals. Like you said, if you want to do 1 and 2 with Boston and Yankees, go ahead. I'm not too sure how that's going to fight. It's going to be fight to the end, and I think the Royals will be the third team.
Perfect. I have the following. So I did basically my best team in the AL, and then the second seed, third seed. So finishing number 1, I got the Seattle Mariners. At number 2, I got the Toronto Blue Jays. At 3, I got the Detroit Tigers. 4, I got the Red Sox. 5, I got the Yankees. And 6, I actually got the Astros over the Royals. It was like I was going back and forth. And I talked very highly about the Royals, but I think the Astros and the injuries they had last year, if that doesn't happen again, they're clearly a playoff team, and experience is going to matter. So I want the Astros taking that last wild card spot, joining the Red Sox and Yankees.
Ben, you and I seem to be on the same page a lot tonight, so I like it. I have the Red Sox taking the top wild card spot. Right behind them is going to be the Yankees, and then for that final spot, I'm going to go with the Astros. I think their experience is going to prevail all. I don't think the Royals, even though they're going to have maybe the advantage a little bit with the division they play in, with some of the weaker teams that they're going to play a little more often, I still think the Astros, like again, when healthy, they could easily be a game or two out of that division in the AL West. And just missing it, I'm going to have the Royals and I'm going to have Texas as the teams stand right now. Depending on what they do at the deadline, could obviously determine and change that prediction, but that remains to be seen. Going in, into 2026 with the current rosters, that's what I have as filling out that wild card spot. So I think that remains to be seen. I don't know, guys. Maybe we should take this to FanDuel and see what happens overall, and maybe we could cash out a little bit. So there's that. Guys, before we wrap, any final thoughts overall about the American League?
No, not at all. Hopefully, we have more than just one exciting division in the American League. That's all I gotta say.
I think the West is going to be exciting. I mean, you just do got the top three. Those games are going to be fun. I think that's gonna. I think that's going to be a fun division to watch. I just think the latter part of that division is where it's going to get a little
Yeah.
shaky, and teams could potentially run away. I think that's what could determine the division in the AL West is how the teams play against maybe the lesser of that division and who has the most success. So I think that could be the difference. But guys, overall, I think this was solid. I love our predictions. There's a lot of logic and a lot of things behind it and what we've seen. We want to hear from you guys, as I keep mentioning, because I want you guys to do it a little more than you do now. We'd love to see the comments. We appreciate the comments, the shares, the likes, everything that you guys do. You are our motivation to keep this podcast running. So, guys, if you can, just do us that favor. Let's see what you got. Let's see how much we all agree, how much we disagree, and give us your reasons why. Maybe you're a fan of a team that we're not so high on. Let us know why maybe we should be higher on that team. We're always open to listen. Guys, as always, have a great night.